Apparently, somebody in the NBA office came across the marketing materials for the NFL's Color Rush jersey program and decided, hey, this is cool, but what if we applied this to our courts? Because that is the only way to describe these monstrosities. Take that in for a second. You're not watching a TV color bar test pattern. These are courts that will be used in games for the NBA in-season tournament. A tournament, by the way, which nobody asked for. Ridiculous, preposterous, ass ugly, brutal, dumb, ludicrous. Doesn't matter how you would like to describe it. No one is using positives to, embrace the NBA's in-season tournament courts. No one's using good or aesthetically pleasing. They're gross. They are the grossest single courts the NBA has ever produced. What are we doing here, Adam Silver and cronies? Here's the deal. We all know the NBA in-season tournament is nothing more than a cash grab. You can learn more about that in the video in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Adam Silver and the owners are looking to make some quick money by establishing a tournament no fan asked for, no fan wants, and that, if we're being honest, no one's excited about apart from those in-league offices in Secaucus, New Jersey. Fun fact, I actually drove by those offices when I was back east because I just wanted to see what it was all about, where are these referee reviews going to, and yeah, those offices, they could also be described as pretty ugly. Perhaps the money this new tournament eventually earns in sponsorships or whatever the hell will go towards new office space, although since the NBA's been in Secaucus since forever, I highly doubt that's the case. Someone's just going to pocket a few extra bucks down the road. Look, I'll be honest, I don't know if the NBA has actually thought through this plan that somehow these gross, ugly courts will make fans become more invested in the in-season tournament. That seems a bridge too far to cross. In fact, if anything, I think what it's going to end up doing is alienating fans who are already kind of annoyed by the fact that we have been steamrolled by the association's desire to, jersey patches. Just the sheer volume of jerseys we now have, most of which have little to do with the actual teams themselves. I mean, sure, yeah, you get a few hits like the Miami Heat, Miami Vice jersey, but there have been a ton of just awful jerseys under the Nike program in the past few years. But I don't think there's been anything quite as egregious as to what is happening to NBA courts. I think most of us will agree that there's something just visually pleasing about basketball courts when they're done right. Not every court's a winner, but I think with basketball, because of just how it looks and just how it appears, especially on television, but in person as well, there's just something that I think you can visually, stylistically get. With an NFL field or a football field in general, there's only so much you can do with it without getting over the top gimmicky. Boise State, or I guess now Eastern Michigan or Coastal Carolina. But yeah, there's only a few things you can do to a football field as far as logo placement, end zone design, and so on and so forth. But with a basketball court, you really have a pretty big canvas to play with. Now, it doesn't mean you should go over the top, although some teams have, but you can find ways to keep it, clutter free and still very visually pleasing, visually stimulating, and really embody what a basketball team stands for. Really, I think this has been the case probably since the early 2000s. The mid and late 90s, we got some crazy court designs, but really from the early 2000s until, before teams started getting multiple courts, I think there was a really sweet spot as far as the look and feel of NBA courts is concerned. Not everyone was good. You didn't really like all of them, but they each did something different. They all had a good look to them. There wasn't just a bunch of nonsense covering the hardwood. Over time, though, the NBA has started to incorporate more ads. It started with, the website by the benches, and then that became a Twitter handle or whatever, and then that actually became advertising. Then you sort of saw some advertising creep up on the floor space. It's really, though, the last, I would say, 2, maybe 3 seasons that the NBA has shown that it doesn't value the hardwood anymore. And to me, there are 2 big things that symbolize this. First are the lack of playoff specific and particularly NBA Finals specific logos and branding during, the postseason. This was one of my favorite things growing up, is seeing that playoff logo or having the finals trophy or logo, whatever the case may be, on the court. Obviously during the Heatles era, you had the big trophy in center court. Sometimes it was in around the key area, but to me this made you want to watch playoff basketball, as weird as that sounds, because it seemed different from an aesthetic, and I think it was almost a reward to those teams to have that on the court. But of course the NBA did away with this. Now, why was this, I think, beloved court feature done away with? Digital ads. NBA digital ads superimposed on the court suck. I understand why they do them. I understand that they can make more money doing this, but they glitch out. Even when they're on the court, it's distracting, it's stupid, it's just so ridiculous. Like, if you want to put an ad on the court, just put the ad on the actual court. Don't cycle through a bunch of superimposed graphics that are there sometimes, but then in other camera angles they're not. Sometimes they're glitching out, sometimes they're big. The entire thing is still a mess. You can sit there and say, well, we have the technology, but honestly, the technology isn't good enough yet to be doing this, and yet the league is forcing it down fans' throat. What that has done, though, has turned the classic hardwood, the courts that fans love, into just nothing. Like, I feel when you watch an NBA game today, the courts have become less interesting. You have obviously you have on the baseline, you have the huge spaces on one side for ad space, I guess. I don't know. Half the teams don't even have ads in that spot, but everyone has to have these huge spaces in case they get an ad, which doesn't make any sense to me. So now on the baseline, you only have the small part of the team's, the city name, the team name, the logo, whatever you want to have. That is definitely a downer. And now franchises have less to play around with, inside the three-point circle, because they have to have that space for the digital ad. It just feels that what was once a beautiful, fantastic part of basketball has become nothing more than a lifeless, cold corporate shill for Adam Silver and owners to make more money with. It seems that we're only a matter of time from courts just devolving into those really terrible European basketball courts. I don't know how many of you have seen those, but they are just nothing. It's like someone took the penny saver and just splattered it on a basketball court. The NBA is heading down that path, by the way. It's only a matter of time before there are ads from baseline to baseline, in the center circle, from the jump ball circle, just wherever. It's just going to be nothing but one big canvas for advertisers. In some ways, I can see these new in-season tournament courts being a litmus test for that, right? It's essentially getting fans conditioned to these brightly colored, very busy, very distracting courts. To that extent, though, has anyone in the NBA office ever watched a Cal State University Bakersfield game? Because I am guessing they have not. I have, though. And if you've ever watched Cal State Bakersfield Roadrunners basketball, you will know they have a hideous blue basketball court. Watching games, at least on TV, I've never been to Bakersfield because it's a pretty just awful place to go. That aside, though, watching the team on television with this blue court is difficult. And I think that is a generous way of saying it. The thing about basketball, when you watch it on a hardwood court, is that it comes off really well. But when you color in that area, it becomes visually disruptive. You don't always know where to look at, especially depending on what color jerseys the teams are wearing. But it's so noisy. It's such a disruptive experience to watch when you have these colors on the court. And now the NBA is essentially doubling, tripling, quadrupling. There's 29 teams, 38 teams, just all going in on this. Let's make these courts super noisy and super busy and super distracting. How is this a good thing? How is this going to make people believe the in-season tournament is both different from the regular season, which, by the way, spoiler alert, it's not, but also worth investing time in? I can't see anyone watching a game on some of these courts for more than 5 minutes without feeling nauseous or having a seizure or just being so visually annoyed that they're just gonna tune out. The real kicker here though is that the new courts for the NBA in-season tournament are nothing more than a gimmick. It's a gimmick, again, like I said earlier, to make us believe that this is somehow different. If you're using a gimmick like this to try to get fans invested in your bad product, it does pretty much confirm our suspicions that this is a bad product. To me, I just go back to the NFL Color Rush jersey program and how despised it was by fans. Like, universally, it was low. Now, there were a few good jerseys to come out of that, but by and large, it was a disaster that ended with the infamous Bills and Jets colorblind game. This is what these new courts sort of symbolize, just an over-the-top gimmick designed to make a few extra bucks, but are just going to be so hated and so just despised by fans that it gets scrapped either at the end of this season or maybe even in season, depending on how just annoying it is to watch these games on these courts. The entire NBA in-season tournament feels nothing more than a bunch of gimmicks. It's sort of like the old XFL in a basketball format. You have these wild courts, you have this stupid tournament in Las Vegas, you have a $1 million prize pool or whatever it is. It's just so gimmicky that I think most fans have already just given up on it. Even those who may have been willing to give it a shot are going to look at the visual aesthetics of the court and just everything alongside it and go like, well, this is bad. And it is bad. There's no other way to put it. The NBA in-season tournament was a bad idea to begin with, and now they're just putting more and more bad ideas on top of it. But everybody knows you don't unclog a toilet by pooping into it even more. That, my friends, is what these courts are. They're more poop on a clogged toilet. That does it for me. I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback. #take it out to the 25.